you can't have those without God. I don't. It depends on what level of meaning that we're talking about, and in how people are defining meaning. If I define if I were to say I derive meaning out of my life, I can mean any number of things from that. It could be to say that I find fulfillment and pleasure out of doing X, Y, or Z, or that it is an objective fact of the universe that performing tasks X, Y, or Z will lead to some the fulfillment of some ultimate goal or something like that. So would I say that my life has meaning? It really would depend on how I define the parameters of what meaning means. In some senses, I don't think that my life has some ultimate overarching meaning. But again, that really doesn't bother me, because all that is that all that's saying is that my life lacks some dictated path that I must follow. And as I said in a video response to you as well a while back, Jack, is that meaning can either be something, a task that you have to elect to complete, or it can be something that just is you do by default. So having the experience of being a human being may be the meaning of my life, especially if certain New Age ideologies are true and that sort of thing. So I may in fact be living a life of meaning by default in many cases,
Okay, but so it seems to me that the main issue that, if I'm hearing you correctly, the main issue that you're having is that, I already talked about what Veritas was really saying as far as I heard this video. I thought it was pretty clear. He was talking about philosophical issues, but this is a side issue, but it seems to me like you're sort of getting out of this that he's saying, look, if you don't believe in God, you're living a life of despair. And you're taking issue, is that correct? Is that what you think that he was saying, or is that what you think that I've said, or is that, like, maybe I could just say it this way. I don't think that people who don't believe in God are living lives of despair. I don't think that they believe that they're living, generally speaking, lives in despair. I think when I talk about meaning to one's life, obviously we get into a very philosophical arena, and at that point, really one's feelings about whether or not I'm saying that your life is meaningless or not shouldn't be brought into that, because we're speaking about meaning in a very philosophical way, and in that way the response to that should be not, it shouldn't be, oh, of course I have meaning. I get up and I donate money and I help out humanitarian. No, we're not talking about the everyday, day-to-day interactions of life that we all agree upon are significant and a part of human existence. What we're talking about is the philosophical idea of meaning and whether or not it has any type of significance in our lives as humans. And if we're saying that there is no overarching grand purpose behind our lives, then the alternative to that is an individual is giving their life purpose and meaning and significance. And that type of individualistic, individualized purpose, significance, and meaning, I could certainly see as being somewhat inconsistent maybe with other aspects of philosophy in their life. And that seemed to me what Veritas was getting at.
Well, it seemed that what he was saying was that what he said, as far as I can remember word for word, was that the atheist worldview essentially is unlivable, and that the only way in which they could is to live their lives, is to borrow theistic capital and pretend that their lives have some overarching meaning. And I really don't see, again, if I can derive pleasure out of my life, then whether or not my actions ultimately mean anything is sort of beside the point. You're going to have to be slightly more specific in what you mean by these issues of inconsistent things of philosophy. I do understand the point about how can you have objective this, how can you have objective morals? Isn't it all just human humanness and relativism? And I don't want to sound, I try not to sound like somebody who is dismissing these things outright and saying, well, obviously we can have objective truth or objective meaning or objective morality without God. I'm the first to acknowledge that there aren't easy answers to these questions. But on the other hand, what I resent is certain people trying to ride roughshod over all of these issues and just say, well, God done did it, and there, if there's a God, then wham bam, thank you ma'am, all of these things fall into place. I don't think that it's quite as simplistic and as easy, as much of a panacea, as it were, as a lot of people want to make these things out to be. It's not simply. I don't think that the question of morality or how to get along in the world is really made that much more simple by introducing God into the equation, because it introduces a whole host of problems on its own. I don't think that the problem of how to find fulfillment in your life, and I understand that there's a difference between meaning and fulfillment and that sort of things, but I mean, if meaning doesn't lead to happiness and fulfillment, then I think we have plenty of grounds to question the basic utility and that sort of thing. If meaning doesn't lead to fulfillment, even if there is subjective meaning, then again, I think that we can question all of those things, and really to just try and well, either you believe this, or you don't have a philosophical leg to stand on. It's like starting from the standpoint of either you agree with me, or you believe in nihilism and despair, or moral relativism, or relativism of meaning, or this or that, rather than acknowledging that these issues really are more complicated, I think, than they are presented of being, and just saying, well, I couldn't, as Veritas did, I can't see why this would lead to anything other than that. Well, I mean, that's just an argument from lack of imagination, I suppose you could say, because it's to me, I feel as sort of, that a lot of these things are sort of disingenuous, and
okay, tool time, but once again, I think I'm just going to call you out on consistency, because what I see here is that as you talk about how these are complex, these are intricate issues, yet at the same time, on your recent video you just posted out, you're just like, I just don't get how there's no better way for me to really express it than just to say, Godcock, and that's, so in the same way, I see some hypocrisy on your behalf. So in one sense, you want him to be something, and Veritas 48 is very articulate in whether or not we think he borrows from stuff or not is besides the point. The fact is, he doesn't engage in the type of stuff that you did, and I think he's pretty open about saying whether something is complex or not. He was speaking merely from his perspective, but then for you to turn right around, and then you to post the videos you do about Christianity, all the while, holding up these criteria about what he should be doing when you yourself aren't doing them. I mean, come on, Peter. I mean, what's that about?
Well, first of all, I never said that I couldn't characterize the Christian worldview in any way better than suck the Godcock. I admit that that's just an irreverent phrase. But again, my most recent video was a parroting back, or a mirroring of what I thought was sort of the sort of okay, this is what you believe I should be like. Well, okay, then I'll act that out. But hold on, I lost track of what you said. I'm sorry. It's.
You said, I'm not sure what might be a better humorous way to describe a life spent on your knees, giving God the pleasure of blah blah blah. Okay. You really, really, Peter, I'm apologetic. But here you are, you criticize Veritas 48, but you yourself are not demonstrating the very expectations and standards that you're desiring for him to accomplish. And I think in this way, I would say there's some inconsistency here. So in one sense, you want him to give you something, but you yourself are not willing to demonstrate it in your own life and your responses to other people and their beliefs. But you want treatment for that with reference to your understanding of the way things are. I think it begins with the individual demonstrating it in their own life first.